How did you get the job on Idiotest? How did that all transpire?
I'd done a couple things with Game Show Network over the years, and they'd been looking for a show for me to host, and they told me they were trying to find one, and I didn't really believe it. You know, you always hear people in Hollywood saying that, oh, I want to find a show for you, and then they actually did. They just asked me to host a run-through in a conference room of Idiotest, and I met before we did that with the producers and learned the game. And it was a really good fit for my comedy and for what I like to do and for my sensibility, and it's a really smart show, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. And the conference room run-through went great. I live here in LA, but I was in New York on vacation. I flew back just for 12 hours just to do the run-through, and then flew back to my vacation. And it went amazingly. They picked up 40 episodes for season 1 right from that run-through. They didn't even have to do a pilot after that, so it went pretty well. And now we're doing season 2, so it's exciting. 65 more episodes of the show. Thanks.
So wait, I'm sorry, did I miss, how did you initially get the, like, how did you know that connection? Did you already audition for something else? Forgive me.
No, just Game Show Network had just had me, I guess they, became fans of some of the things I'd done over the years, and they had me come in over the years and host different pilots for them and appear as a guest on some of their shows. So the relationship started that way, and they just always, kept me in mind, which I appreciated because it worked out in me getting a show on their network that's a hit, so that's fun.
So when that 12-hour like flying there, and I heard you quickly say as we were setting up that you love pressure and that you thrive on it.
Yes.
How was that? Like you're flying.
It was great. I flew, around the country on a red eye. I left New York, I think it was, at 6 a.m. and returned at 6 a.m. the next day. And I was in LA only for 12 hours, and I was on no sleep, and I had to do that audition and then go. After I booked that, there was another audition for a Fox show called Weird Loners for a scripted acting role that I auditioned for, and then had to learn both those and then fly right back. And both went really well, and I felt great, and I did not get the scripted Fox show. It's going to be coming out on TV anyway, though, despite the fact that they made the mistake of not casting me. So that's on them, as far as life errors.
Sure, and they have to accept it.
They have to live with that, that's just how they're going to have to move on now. But I got Idiotest, and yeah, I love pressure. To me, I can be very lazy if I don't have a lot going on. But when I take on projects and when I decide to do things, I want 10 things at my shoulders at once. For some reason, I just like a deadline. I like a hammer being over my head, figuratively. I don't want a hammer on top of my head in life, but not a real hammer.
Well, I've heard of that, of certain people like graduate students or something just thriving on that deadline, whereas if they have a long time to work on, let's say, a paper, that they won't do it. But knowing that they have a week left, that there's just some kind of adrenaline rush that they get. Is that the same for you? Like if you know you have, let's say, 10 things in the ether that you're going to be working on, how does that feel, that pressure? Because
I like it. I mean, every paper I wrote in college was, I did not read the books all semester or all quarter, didn't look at the work. And starting at about 1 a.m. the night before it was due, I wrote the paper and read the books and skimmed the things, and every single one, every test, how I studied for it. The papers that my mom didn't write for me, she did write some for me. She's a very nice lady.
That's a nice mom, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's probably technically called cheating, but whatever. If your mom writes for it, I think it's okay. I proofread it.
Sure.
Translated it into my own typing, because she didn't like to type.
Okay.
She's a handwriter.
Nice.
I had to call her and be like, Mom, cannot read your writing. If you're gonna write papers for me, can you be a little bit more crisp in your penmanship? But it just feels good. I like the pressure. I enjoy knowing on set that I have a whole production that's depending on me to deliver. It's just exciting for me.
That's interesting. When did you realize that about yourself? Because I realized the same about myself, but it wasn't until I read this article in, like, I don't know, Psychology Today or something, that people do. There's a certain sect of the population that thrives on that pressure. When was it that you realized that?
I think I always knew that I liked pressure in my head, but it was a weird conundrum that formed because I also had a pretty severe speech problem growing up, so I couldn't even speak, and I hated the pressure of being called on for many years of my life. I didn't want a teacher to ask me to speak in class. So I knew that I wanted to be an entertainer and a performer, and I could make people laugh when I was able to speak fluently. But when it wasn't those times, I was sitting there like deathly afraid of being called on and nervous and locked down with my vocal cords just tense and frozen. And so it was a weird dichotomy, but I knew that I had to break out of that to fulfill what I wanted for my life, and just eventually I did.
Is that where the being funny came in? Because I know a lot of times people develop that as a coping mechanism for stuff. So is that?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't
Okay.
think it was. I mean, it probably helped me be funnier, I guess, just, more so because it forced me. I was a talker as a kid, and, before my speech problem came out at age like 3, I was talking a million miles a minute. And I found some home video of myself recently, and it was like frightening how fast I was talking. And so I think maybe the world, forced me to shut up and listen and observe. And I think that may have helped my observations of the world and the way I saw things. But I think since I was a kid, I always saw the world in a weird comedic lens. I just would see ridiculous things adults were doing or decisions that the world was making collectively, it seemed, and they always seemed full of folly, and they were being, decided in a very odd, flawed logic system. And so I thought it was, if you don't point out the humor in those things, it's just going to be maddening. So I decided, I just didn't decide, but it's just naturally filtered through my brain in a humorous way. That's the most boring answer possible for an answer about how funny I am.
Well, another idea sparked while you were saying that, and that is in those moments when you maybe had to get up in front of the class and you were dreading maybe the kids around you, and as mean as kids can be, how did that then later groom you for, let's say, being on Chelsea Lately or things? Because you seem so confident and funny, and is that where some of that came from? Like, was that a good school for you?
Totally. Growing up around bullies, making fun of you for a speech problem certainly helped prepare me for Chelsea Handler bullying me on the air in a friendly way. But
Sure.
She made, a good part of that show about making fun of me and everything I would say or do. So I definitely had built up a pretty strong shield against that kind of thing, and I was able to take it in a way that I think most people would not enjoy being made fun of, and I loved it and thrived, and because I developed to a point where I, had such a good sense of humor about myself, I think, that I could just joke about whatever and take it in a... I used to love watching Johnny Carson and Charles Grodin or Letterman and Grodin argue, and Grodin would be a guest, and they'd had this contentious energy, but you knew there was a friendship behind it, but it was just this very, aggressive... To me, it's just so funny to have an interview or an interviewee angry at each other. I just loved that dynamic. I always wanted to do that on TV, so I got to do that. I think having built that up, I mean, Chelsea even made fun of my speech problem on the air a bunch. Not my stutter, I'd overcome that, but I still have a lisp to this day, a little bit of a lisp, and she enjoyed pointing that out. But it used to be a source of pain. It became a source of humor to me, because I realized you can laugh at, we all have issues, we all have things wrong with us, and it's fun to laugh at ourselves. And she was always able to laugh at herself too, and didn't mind if you threw stuff back at her. I always thought that maybe she wouldn't want that. So for the first bunch of years on the show, I wouldn't throw stuff back at her. And then one day, I remember we were hanging out, and I said to her, do you mind if I sometimes throw stuff back at you? Sometimes I'm censoring myself when I want to throw an insult back your way, because I don't know if you'd like it. She's like, whoever said you can't throw something back at me? And I said, well, when you, have this bravado in the hallways and act as though, you miss Chelsea Handler walking out there, you kind of give off the impression that you don't want people to be able to throw stuff back at you as well. And she's like, oh, that was not my intention. I ignore everybody in the hallways. You can say whatever you want. And she meant it. And I started in the last couple seasons throwing stuff back at her, and our banter got so much better, and it's just so much more freeing. So if you can dish it, you have to be able to take it, and she certainly could, and I can too. I make fun of people constantly on Idiotest and in my stand-up and on Twitter. So if I can't take it, that would be hypocritical. I get a lot of hate these days on Twitter. I've found with success, you get a much larger amount of negative responses and people reacting weirdly to things that you do, and I think it's very funny. I often favorite insults on Twitter. I will engage people that call me idiots, because I call people idiots, and I'm still fans of theirs. So it would be stupid if I couldn't, Also, you're not doing anything interesting if you're not offending and annoying some people. I think too much of my career was worried about being inoffensive or making sure that I wouldn't, be doing anything that was too, jarring to any one group. And lately I've just been letting go of so much of that. And I think, through that comes a lot of freedom. The reason I became a stand-up was George Carlin. He's my favorite comedian ever. And I saw some interview with him, and every few months when I forget this, I end up on the internet, down the rabbit hole of the internet, and I keep re-stumbling on this interview with George Carlin, where they asked him what made him truly a success, and he said when he finally stopped caring what people thought of him is when he truly started to find success. and I'm finding the same to be true. Yeah, that's the end of that answer.
Going back to being bullied and feeling maybe different in school, do you think that prepared you more so to get in front of casting directors and being told, well, you know, you're this type or you're that type, whatever people are told about who their type is, whether they want to believe it or not? And do you think that helped you? Because, you know, a lot of people realize how thin their skin is once they get here and they're told certain things and they think, oh, well, I was always told I was this back home. But then,
Right.
I mean, I know you grew up here, so. But do you think that was a really good, like, you'd already had the skin ripped off? Or
Yeah,
no?
I mean, you need to have a very thick skin to pursue acting or stand-up comedy, both. You know, stand-up comedy, you're in front of people with just your mic and your words, and on auditions, you're in front of very judgmental casting directors who I don't love the audition process because I don't think they create an environment at all analogous to what it's like being on set. And I get that they need to create a pressure situation to see if you can handle pressure, but it's different kinds of pressure. It's negative pressure and positive pressure. And to me, you know, I said I love pressure on me. I love pressure when people are there to listen or are there to know that I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and they're there to encourage it. Then that's an energy I feed off of. And so I thrive on a set. When I'm acting on a set or hosting something on a set, that's my comfort zone. But I think casting directors miss it all the time because their audition rooms are very cold and quiet and judgmental and formal. It's like, hi, thanks for coming in, and go ahead. And I'm supposed to just act in this like cold, sterile environment. I know they're judging every second and every moment to see if I hit that joke the right way. That's not how you're supposed to receive entertainment or receive a performance. So I know they find a lot of good acting that way, but I think they must be missing a lot of good actors that way as well. There needs to be a more fun vibe in an audition room, and you can really see people in their element, confident, because when you're on set, yes, there's time pressure and there's money pressure, but there's not a judgmental energy that I think can affect performances. And I don't even know if I answered your question at all.
What I wanted to talk about was building an audience on social media. And you talked about Twitter, and sometimes you feed the trolls and sometimes you don't. So how has it been for you building an audience on social media, and maybe talk about some of your pet peeves you see from other performers on social media?
I enjoy social media very much. I really love the direct engagement with an audience at your fingertips any time of night, you know, early, late, sober, very not sober. I love that at my fingertips I can just communicate and even upload video. I have a production studio in my pocket. You know, it took you guys a while to set these lights up, yet we could have done it on an iPhone. It would be, some people might like it more. They might like it not as much. It's nice to have production value, but the point is it's amazing that we can communicate in an instant without any barriers to that entry anymore. However, it's frustrating a little bit that I find oftentimes that the smarter stuff tends to get the fewest retweets and the fewest favorites, and you have to oftentimes be really coarse or just make a joke about sex or just make something about something very stupid or mean, very overtly mean. That blows up. But when you do something more thoughtful or smart, it does not. That's frustrating. I guess, you know, social media can always be depended to be the most thoughtful, intelligent folks out there. Some are, of course, they're out there, but, you know, it's just a little annoying. And then people are a little selfish with it too. You know, the advent of the favorite. Like, it used to be people like something, they would retweet it and then it would spread it wider. And then people discover the favorites tab and they're like, oh, I can just keep that in my favorites. I like it, but I don't like it and want to share it. I'm fine keeping this to myself. I like it, but just not quite enough. So you get like a great joke, you're right out there and you'll get like a lot of favorites and a small amount of retweets. And if it was the flip, you'd be able to exponentially grow your audience bigger. And that's just important because it's very nice to, if you're putting all of your energy into something you're creating, it's nice you get it reached to as broad an audience as possible so they can enjoy it and, you know, get from that entertainment what you're trying to create with it. You know, I don't know how other comics stick with it when they, you know, I have a much smaller number than obviously people that have in the hundreds of thousands and millions of followers, but I don't know comics who are tweeting and Instagramming for years that have like 300 followers or 1,000 followers. God bless them. I don't know how they keep, and you have to make it about the work, but at some point I wonder if you'd feel like you're talking to just yourself, you know, and I hope at least it's climbing for them, you know, so I try to retweet comedians that I respect and enjoy and follow who don't have as much following when I can, because I want them to be exposed to bigger audiences. But just not to surpass me. It'd be good if they get just right below my audience size.
Sure.
Or less. Anything just anywhere here is good, but just not. If they shot past me, it would be unpleasant. I'm kidding.
Would
It's
you still
happened
be
many
friends?
times. Of course, happened many times. There've been plenty of people that I helped come up in their career and gave spots to and helped them get stage time when they had no name whatsoever, and have shot far past me as far as stature in the industry. And sometimes they're really cool and nice and remember that, and sometimes they do not and are really not so nice about it. And it's all good. People can be as they will. You just, keep it in mind and move on.
A lot of times people don't want to talk about that. Like, oh yeah, it's great, we're great friends.
Right.
But that could be code for, sure, we avoid each other in a room. I mean,
Yeah.
do you find that element now? I mean, I guess this is a weird question. I probably shouldn't ask it, but
You can ask.
okay. I mean, so you're achieving a new level of success, which is great. Have you seen a new way that people have treated you? Like maybe the ones that weren't nice to you before, all of a sudden now, oh, Ben, hey, we should do lunch, or, and then the ones that were like, you actually really like them, now they're like more standoffish with you.
Yeah, a little bit. Not bad. I try to be, in my life, just very outgoing and friendly towards everybody, whether they are less successful than me or more or the same or somebody I've never met before or a random audience member. I think everybody's the same and is of equal value, and I think that nobody's more important than anybody else. We're all floating on this, vast, unknowable universe and a little marble in outer space. To think that the words or the tasks that I'm performing are more important than yours is completely wrong and ridiculous. So I think that amount of that amount of perspective helps you relate to everybody, and I think hopefully I've been able to avoid that kind of bullshit more than most entertainers for that reason, because I generally have a pretty good pretty good rapport with people, and I've found that people have just been very happy for the new level of success I found recently, and generally speaking, that is true. But I will say that, and I think, weirdly, I've in the last couple of weeks had very weird instances with two comedian friends of mine who were both very good friends, and then both I think just are acting weird and are seeing things skewed in a weird way. So, one of my former friends, and granted we had a falling out before this happened, but we had a falling out that was a respectful falling out, and then recently got drunk at the Improv and tore my picture off the wall. And that's something that, every comic in the back of their head kind of hopes you one day get your picture on the wall at the Improv. It's like one of the greatest honors in comedy, I think. And tore it off the wall. And clearly that's some kind of weird jealousy or some weird, anger or not being able, I don't know what it is. I wasn't there, I don't know in the person's head, but it doesn't seem like it's a benign act, So.
Someone told you? Sorry.
Yeah, the club just told me that it happened, and they're working on getting a new one printed and getting it back up, I guess. But so that was pretty weird to hear. But I think those are anomaly cases, and those are the times and the people I think that are, I don't know, they're probably going through their own things. I try not to take it that kind of thing too personally. Thankfully, I don't have to deal with a lot of it. But you can't help but take it a little bit personally, because it's, but it's few and far between. Generally speaking, people seem to be very happy, and hope they are behind my back as well, but seem to be very nice, and I've always been happy for other people's success, so you'd hope to mostly get that in return. We're at the we're at the Vancouver Comedy Festival, and I was being seen by Eddie Brill, who was the Letterman booker at the time, and I did 90 minutes of clean material, so it was like 2 sets back to back, and I had a great set. And Eddie comes backstage and is talking to me, and he tells me in his first few words, like, Ben, you're great at what you do. Let me explain to you, though, why you're a year or two away from being on Letterman. He'd already said that, and then continues on to compliment the things in my set that he liked. He walks up and missed the first 2 sentences, and missed that I did not book the show, and was just in this angry, pent-up thing that he then decided to unload on me. He gets in my face between me and Eddie, because he just hears Eddie complimenting me, and gets in my face and he goes, look at you with your cute little jokes, your jokes about candy bars and your little bullshit, huh? It's great for you, huh? It must be real nice to be on the way up, some shit like that. And it was just so weird and unnecessary, you know. I've since told him that story, and he apologized for it. It doesn't matter; it's just a funny story. But we ended up doing Chelsea Lately together a few times. I love, but people have weird moments, you know. We had weird moments, I'm sure, as well.
I think it hurts probably a lot less when it's just some random troll on Twitter or YouTube or something that says something rather than a friend who, you know, rips your photo off a wall and you know, you thought you had some level of a relationship. But that's great that people have been encouraging. I'm wondering though, for your own thoughts about your career, have you ever been tempted to give up?
Never.
Never. So you've been in LA your whole life.
Yeah.
You went to college.
College in San Diego and came right back. Never been tempted to give up. I mean, everybody probably has a fleeting thought enter their head as much as any weird fleeting thought, but I've never considered for more than a second if I would stop doing this. It's what I'm supposed to be doing. I love to do it. It comes so natural to me. It brings me a lot of happiness. I've never thought about stopping it, no. I thought about shifting my focus within entertainment to different forms of comedy or different types of shows, but I've never wanted to stop. I don't think I'll ever stop. I'll be 105 years old doing stand-up comedy and probably doing a web series of some kind.
Well, you have a Smodcast, right, at the Last Week on Earth, okay?
Yep.
And you interviewed actor Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
And he said to you, it's really important for anyone in the arts, do not put all your eggs in that one basket. So how do you take that advice? Is that something, it sounds like you have so many things going on. When did you realize that that advice is how you should pretty much rule your career?
Well, I'd already been doing that. Cranston was right here in the apartment and did the podcast, and that was incredible because he's one of my favorite actors ever and an amazing human being, and Breaking Bad's my favorite show ever, so that was just cool in general to have him on my podcast. But when he said that you don't want to put all your eggs in that one basket, that was, for me, was very apropos because I had just started doing the podcast. And that was, to me, the constant I could give myself to take the power away from the casting directors and the people that sometimes, you know, are able to be the gatekeepers of your success and your happiness. So it was nice to have something that, you know, in addition to my stand-up, that just I could self-generate and I could do and help build my fan base with doing that. But I felt really bad lately in the fact that I've not been able to do the podcast the last few months. I haven't been able to find the time. My bandwidth has just been stretched too thin. And with a lot of other things and a little bit of life, I have to find time in there as well. I can't always be just creating stuff for other people. And I feel really bad that I did the podcast almost every week for 3 years, and I've not been doing it so much lately. But I will be doing it again. I will be bringing it back. But Cranston's advice, I've always understood that. I've always spread myself pretty thin. It's actually a problem for me. I think I would be doing better in my career if I were focused on fewer things. But I just like it all and I want to do it all, and so I just made peace recently with the fact that's just in me and it's who I am, and so my career will go more at this trajectory instead of this trajectory, but it's still forward progress. You know, this shape ends up going like this, kind of like a whale's tail, but forward. If the tail was in the front of a whale, and then he could swim forward by what? You understand what I'm saying?
Sure. I'm envisioning the whale.
If the tail was in front, and then it went like this, and then the front part you could go like that. Yeah, and it would propel him forward, even though you wouldn't think it would. Is the point.
Have you seen other performers put all their eggs in one basket, and how is that different for you to know that, you know what, I have my own show to fall back on? It doesn't matter if someone didn't pick me. I pick me for my show, and I pick my guests. How does that work out for you?
I just, God bless them. It seems when people put their eggs in one basket, it often leads to very quick, big success and monetary success. People that come up with catchphrases that they push incessantly as the punchline of most of their jokes, or, do something like that. That I don't love. I've never done that myself. I jokingly will say, like, I should come up with a catchphrase so I could become really successful. But when you put all your eggs in the basket of one show or something, that's fine. I mean, you should always have other projects, I think, going that you're passionate about, because it shouldn't be about success. So if you have other things that you're passionate about, one more project in your back burner or in your pocket, or you're slowly tinkering with as you do your other thing, then that's probably enough for you. I don't think you should ever take any one show that you have as the be-all and end-all of your career, because shows end, as do relationships, as do friendships, as do, they don't always end, but generally they do. I meant that just really for friendships and relationships. Shows do always end. at some point.
Relationships end too, yeah.
Except meet the press. Relationships do end at some point. If somebody dies at the worst, at the longest case.
Sure.
Or earlier.
Well, but then how did you start the podcast? Like what was...
I've been wanting to do a podcast for a long time. I actually did a podcast years before anybody was really doing them. I never released it stupidly, and I lost the files. And I had all these cool podcasts with great comedians that are now really well known that were in my car. It was called Gleib Drives With. And I was with these different comedians on the way from LA to Irvine. And I lost them all. I have like one or two left. I released one on my Smodcast recently with Greg Proops. But then had done, everybody started doing podcasts. I wanted to do one. And then I just randomly ended up being like the guest host or co-panelist on this pilot with Kevin Smith. And he and I ended up talking after the show. We got stoned after the show. And he wanted to hear my life story. And I told it to him. And at the end of that conversation, we were missing the whole rap party while we were talking for an hour. And at the end of the conversation, he said to me, so what you're a production guy. You're a guy that makes your own things. What are you doing being here on a guest on my show or on Chelsea's panel? Why don't you go and do your own stuff again? And it really inspired me when he said that. And I'd already been thinking that along those lines, but I didn't have the kick in the ass to really start doing it. And then Kevin just gave me that kick in the ass. He then said to me, you got to come on my podcast, be a guest. I went to his house, and he says to me, during the first commercial break, do you want to guest host my podcast here in my house this Friday when I'm out of town? And I said, of course I do. And then at the end of the podcast, he said to me, do you want your own show on my network? And I said, yes, I do, but I'm torn between these different podcast ideas I have. I have a format for this, interview one, I have this title, I have that one, I have one where I cover all the week's news, and it's called Last Week on Earth. And he goes, that name is brilliant. I never heard such a good name. It's a unique podcast. We don't have anything like it. That's the one you should do first. And he just was so decisive. And I'm like, yeah, you don't say no to Kevin Smith telling you you should do a show on his network and thinks your title's brilliant. So I started doing it. And as the advice I got years ago from one of my first managers, Howard Lapidus, he said, you'll remember this advice one day. And I did, because he said that and it set me up. My brain remembered probably, but he said forward motion begets forward motion. And it really does. Just do anything. If you do anything that is something you're interested in, something that feels productive or creative, it will lead to your next thing, either by learning what you don't want to do, but more so it just puts out in the universe this energy it's an engine you can't stop. It just literally like propels, it's like a steamship engine that just, slowly starts to go, and as it starts to get more water under it, if this how steam engines work, I really am making that up. I don't know if they do progressively get faster. I would assume it seems like gaining steam is a phrase we've all heard. Sure. And then hopefully the steam propeller does not end up running over the front-facing whale tail that somehow progresses it under the ship.
Forgot about the whale. It's still in the water.
You can't forget about the whale.
Right.
The whale's always under the water. He can't walk. So you got to remember that.
Well,
Whales don't walk. That's the whole point I'm trying
to
make.
All right. But Splash, she walked. She was a mermaid.
She was a mermaid.
Right.
That's half person, half whale. I didn't know we were talking about half people, half whales. If that was the case, then yes, the whale could walk. So away from steamships, because it's probably very dangerous with that motion gaining.
Sure.
What is it called? Propeller?
I think the propeller.
But it's a wheel also. It's a wheel.
Maybe. I don't know how the new boats are, but yeah. I wonder if the Love Boat had that.
When they did, it probably felt very exciting and new to them.
Probably, yeah.
You know what I mean?
So you've never had sort of a sit-on-the-couch moment, depressed, my life is going nowhere. It sounds like you're just always doing something. Or it lasted like a nanosecond.
Yeah, I've had those moments, but you end up, either having a drink or smoke that night and decompressing, or go and hang out with a friend, or have a minorly self-destructive night to get it out of your system, or write something. The self-destructive ones never seem to help you feel great the next day. You feel generally worse or tired, but every time I've felt like worthless, I felt like, I'm just a piece of shit that doesn't do anything, doesn't get anything done. The cure for it every time was when I finally got off my ass and went to a workout room and tried some new jokes in a small stand-up room or a big room, and just anytime you try some new jokes and one of them works, every time the weight would just be lifted off my shoulders, and I'd be like, right, the answer is just to work. The answer is always just to work. I mean, it sounds so stupid because it's a corporate slogan, but the most succinct, best slogan for success in life, I think, is just do it. Nike really stole that for a shoe, and it's unfair because it's a great slogan, and now you say it and you sound like an asshole, but it's a good advice. Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with shoes.
Right.
What does that have to do with shoes?
Any other follow-up corporate slogan?
No, it's just do it. It's a great one.
You've got mail? No.
It's not really a good life slogan.
No.
You do always have mail, but that's
just... Plus it was so slow. Yeah.
Yeah. but just do it. I mean, it's nothing to, the point is it's nothing to do with shoes.
Sure.
Just do what? The shoe? Is it telling you to have sex with your shoe? Like, what does it mean? Out of the context of do something in your life, just do it. And then shoes. They're unrelated. And they co-opted brilliance and took it to sell shit. And that's a lot of times what's wrong with the country. You got brilliant moments, and then what we do with that is we turn it into selling your shit. Why can't a brilliant moment just sit alone? Billy Joel said it, leave a tender moment alone. Why not let a brilliant moment linger for a second? It's always got to have a slogan. Always these brilliantly inspiring commercials, you know, the human condition, and selling you eggs or some shit. It's like, it's got nothing to do with eggs. It's not, you're not selling human eggs. If you are, I mean, that would be an interesting commercial. That would be an apropos mixture of slogan and content. But that's rare. You know, never fits. Stayed at a Holiday Inn Express recently because I'm balling in my life, and their slogan was "Stay inspired." It's also good advice. Stay inspired is very good advice. But no one's inspired staying at a Holiday Inn Express. It's one of the low moments. It's one of the least inspiring moments in their lives. Your slogan can't outshoot your product by a mile. That's just people aren't going to buy it. I mean, maybe idiots are going to be like, oh yeah, I'm inspired here. Most people are going to be like, oh, I just remembered how uninspired I am staying here. Their slogan should have been like, we're a hotel. You can sleep here.
Right. Got clean sheets. No bed bugs.
Maybe cleanish. There will be a Danish and plastic in the morning. That would be a fair slogan. I wouldn't criticize that. I'd be happy with that. I would not stay there. But I wouldn't stay there with a better slogan either.
CineDopes, a web series that has, what, 4 or 5 episodes right now?
4 episodes,
Four
season
episodes?
1.
Okay. How did you get involved in the project?
Brian Drolet, he's the reason I did the show. He's a very funny, talented writer and comedic actor. You know, you got to start on the Hills talking about perception, and people wouldn't think somebody from the Hills would have a brain or be a real talent, but he's a really talented, very hardworking guy, and he asked me if I would play his co-lead in the show, and I wanted to work with him, so instantly I was very intrigued and pretty much said yes, but I said, can I read the scripts and just make sure it vibes with what I like, and I read them, and he wrote very funny scripts, but he also said that he was open to, you know, my input on the scripts. When he said that, my eyes lit up because I've been really wanting to write something again. I hadn't written my own thing in a very long time, and to collaborate with Brian, we rewrote all the scripts together, and we came out with what I think was a very unique, funny, pretty out-of-the-box comedy show. It's a sitcom for YouTube. It's old school, over-the-top kind of screwball comedy. You don't see a lot of that. You see these uber subtle, sometimes bordering on boring comedies, and this one is just nuts. It's out of its mind. Brian and I try to ground it a little bit in our performances, you know, and to allow some of the rest of the ensemble cast to go crazy. But it's just a funny, weird world we created, and it's so odd that so many weird things happen. We have a super villain, and we have, you know, infestations of crazy animals, and we have people having sex everywhere, and we have just like we have pot being smoked everywhere. It's just weird. CineDopes is a weird, fun world, and it's a very good use, I think, of your 15 minutes times 4 episodes. And then if people watch it and like it, we get to make a season 2. So everybody wins. Mostly you, people watching it, and then us making it again. Not people who didn't see it. Those people lose, or who never saw this interview, and then those people I feel bad for those people.
Right, but they should feel inspired.
If they're staying at Holiday Inn, they should.
Did you know it was going to be released on YouTube for free, and what are your thoughts on that?
I thought it was cool. I didn't understand at first why we would do that instead of pitching it around. Then the team all convinced me, you know, that it was an interesting model, and that was an emerging model that people are doing on YouTube to, you know, not have any corporate influences, not have any bosses telling them network notes, telling them how to tone down something or fix something, or it's not the way they like it. If you can make a show successful, you literally can create a comedy or whatever kind of show you want that's truly your vision, unfettered. So that's nice, and that seemed appealing to me, and a good use of my time if we could really deliver it the way we wanted to, and people received it well, then we get to make more and more seasons, and we could just have this playhouse to go nuts in, this, you know, canvas that could go anywhere. So that seemed exciting to me. The challenge is getting enough people to see it so that you can do a second season, because you don't have network money behind it advertising it. It's hard to spread the word. But hopefully places like Film Courage can help.
Good. Oh wow, that's good. I like that. Then, you know what? That should be our catchphrase. What do you think about an actor investing their own money in a project? Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think
It's risky to invest your own money in a project, but angeline-rose Troy did it. She funded the CineDopes season, and it's an amazing thing. She had the idea, she owned the property of this movie theater comedy, and she wanted to make it, and she wanted to do a comedy in an ensemble and hire other actors and give us all a chance to do a really cool show. And it's something that I've rarely done, invest my own money in my own projects. I've invested in other people's projects, but not often in my own, because I always feel like I'm already bringing enough to the table when I do my own thing, and I want somebody else to share the risk with me, and so there's more of a team that is invested. But Angeline really believed in it and wanted to put her own money in it, and God bless her for doing it, because we wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise. So there would be no CineDopes without her. So it's an amazing thing that she did it, and I hope that we gain enough of an audience that she doesn't regret doing it, because it's a funny show and she's funny in it, and the cast is great, and we all worked really hard on it. So it'll only get better season 2.
So when you said you've invested in other projects, not your own, or not ones that you are featured in, what are some of the key items? What is your like due diligence that you're checking off? Okay, all right, I'll do this. What are some of the things that you look for in those projects? They must have.
I haven't invested a ton. I phrase that in a weird way. I haven't invested a ton of my own money in other comedic projects. I'm currently perusing whether or not I'm going to invest in stand-up comedy specials, producing specials for other comedians. I just shot mine and didn't do it under my own banner, because I want the validation of another production company saying that they want me, and I want to be able to do that same thing for somebody else. But it's more investing time of helping somebody, taking comics under your wing, bringing comics on the road that you think have talent, and bringing them out and helping, if they just giving them stage time or any advice if they wanted it about ways to develop material that might suit them better, or help them, along to create stuff that might be more of a solid act that can help take them further in the stand-up world. What it is in people what it is that I look for, it's just talent, I think you obviously can't be a total fuck up and have no work ethic, but you can learn a work ethic. You can't really learn talent. So I just feel like I've always had a pretty good eye, at finding talent and knowing when people are good. Throughout my career, I've given untold thousands of comedy spots to all the up-and-coming comedians that people love now. I helped a lot of them, with their first spots at major clubs, helped get them into the improvs, into the Comedy Juice shows, and helped get them seen by agents and producers, ended up leading to big things for them. And I just only book talent, and it's hard to do that, because I don't envy casting directors that have to do that, or producers that have to decide who to invest in, because you're putting a lot of money and a lot of your career and life on the line to invest in people, and so you just have to pass on people that aren't talented. You have to pass on people who don't have it. And the sad version of that is when people work really, really hard and don't have talent. That's unfortunate. Working hard can be so effective. Even sometimes they make it through, oftentimes. But when someone doesn't have talent and no work ethic, it's easy to pass on. It's like, why care? They don't even care. So you just look for a spark you look for people that are delivering it well, delivering a joke that hits, delivering a piece of content, a short film, a painting that you're like, wow, that looks like it has skill and uniqueness to it. That's what you look for.
Who were some of the first people you made laugh? Was it someone in your family? Was it a kid at school?
Yeah, I'm sure it's my family. I made laugh since I was a kid. My parents, my brother, my grandparents, and then at school all the time. Even with my speech problem, I was still on and off able to speak better different parts of the year, different classes. Right from working on flights, still one class comedian in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, even though I had a speech problem throughout all that, because I was just still able to find funny ways to talk and to say things and to point out absurdities in other people's behavior, and did that in a very stammery, weird way oftentimes, but it was always fun making people laugh at school. Comedy's a really interesting diffuser of tension. It's a really interesting icebreaker. It's a really great way to, lubricate a room.
Ben Gleib, 5-year, 10-year plan.
Interesting. 5-year plan. Idiotest is completing season 7 or 8. We do a couple of years sometimes, or 9. It would be great if CineDopes was doing also season 5 or 6, 5 years from now, which can be watched, by the way, at youtube.com/totalanarchytv. CineDopes, a great comedy about a movie theater that sells weed. You should watch it. And just doing other things. I'd like to have some more movies under my belt, some live action acting roles, and I'd like to, in the next couple of years, have another show on the air that I have on TV that I've sold, that I created, that I'm a host or actor but that I created, that really is more my creative vision. I'd like to do all of that together, plus bigger stand-up dates, touring theaters. I'm always touring, but bigger venues would be great. And the ability to take a little bit of time off in that, if it's possible, and it is not. Kind of. You can find some time off. And a flourish, and maybe a family.
Oh, okay. Family, wow.
I don't think about that a lot, but possibly.
Right.
Next 5 years, if I'm going to do it, that's at least be part of the next 10-year plan, most likely. And then the 10-year plan would be just, having just my career being a way that I'm entertaining as many people as possible, that I'm reaching a broader audience, that I don't have to struggle anymore to get people in the seats or get the eyeballs on the screens, that people are enough trusting in what I put out there that they just will be very interested in seeing what I put out there, so that I don't feel like I'm wasting energy of things I like to do sometimes. I love to entertain even just 5 people, and I always do it, and I give a show in front of 2 people the same amount of energy that I give to a show in front of 12,000 people, but it feels better to do it in front of more people because you feel like you've made that many more people happy that day. So just bigger scale of what's going on now. I'm very happy in my life, but it would be fun to just be able to do things on a grander scale.
What if you have a little Benny and he wants to be a comic?
It's all good with me. It's all good with me. My parents were incredibly supportive of me, and I couldn't have done it without their support. I mean, they never questioned my career goals, which is unusual for parents. I would just tell them positives and negatives, and I'll let them know that it's hard to do it, but if you want to do it, that you have to stick to it, and you can get it done if you're talented. And you got to be honest with yourself, but if you have that talent or not. Often I'll run into somebody from high school that will, come to a show or something, and they'll say after the show, they'll be like, "Man, you're living the dream." They have this like wistfulness in their voice. They wish they were doing that, and they feel it almost conveying in that question like that they are not living their dream. And I think that's the saddest thing possible, because not everybody is supposed to live their fantasy dream, their childhood, I want to be an astronaut or a comedian or an actor or a ball player dream. Those probably most of the time are stupid dreams to continue having once you grow up. But your dream should be the choices you make. Your dream should be the life that you choose, because every minute that banker or that accountant could quit and pursue comedy if he really wants to. If that's his dream, if that's the dream, then do that. And if you don't do that, then your dream is not doing that. You've chosen to not do that. And it's often a better choice to not pursue your passions as your job. Because then your job, comedy that I loved in my heart, becomes a business, and you have to figure out how to tweet in the right time of day that it gets seen by the most audience, and complain in interviews about not getting enough retweets and all that kind of thing. Whereas that guy gets to just do his job that he chose, and hopefully it does a helpful service to the community or to the world. And then, even if that's cleaning up someone's garbage or serving them food at McDonald's or whatever it might be, those are all very valuable services. And then they get to come home, clock out of that job at 5 o'clock, and relax, and each day is a vacation at home, and watch me making you laugh on TV, because I'm working longer hours trying to create entertainment that takes longer to create. So that's a dream to me. I wish often, I don't wish I could do that, but that is an alternate enjoyable life that I would love to have done if I did a different style of life. So I just think whatever you do, you have to be happy with it, because you can always change it. Life's a choice every second. You can change paths any second. And so I would just tell them that. And also, if I can just tag on part of the 10-year goal, is I would like to be at a place, part of why I want to be able to reach a huge audience is there's a lot of things you can do to impact things, to make change, to impact the world these days with the internet, with how fast things travel. We've created a hive mind for humanity, that for a species that didn't have a hive mind capability before, like bees or certain animals do. So I would love to be able to figure some way to just help advance the planet in a more significant way, whether it's through a thoughtful show or a foundation or a charity or something, helping kids with speech problems, or helping solve one big calamity in the planet, or just helping people have more of a conversation that leads towards a more congruous, happy, chill planet. That would be very nice. And you need leverage to do that, and leverage comes with broad audience and large number of eyeballs. So I hope I get to, like I said, I like pressure on my shoulders. I handle it very well. So the more pressure I get to have, I think the more success and the more effective I'll be able to be in my life. So I just really, the 10-year plan, just a lot of pressure on my shoulders, but I like good pressure.
And to be
You know what I'm saying? Like good, positive steam engine pressure.
Sure.
Front-facing whale fin, not like old school backward-moving steam wheel with like old school traditional whales under it. Because we've already been there and done that.
No bee euphemisms. You
Yeah.
were talking about a colony, a hive mentality. No bee euphemisms you could throw in there.
No, I mean just buzz the shit out of people and then
Birds,
eat the honey.
bees, yeah.
You know what I mean? Buzz around and then eat the honey. You can't forget to eat the honey. Otherwise, what's the point of all the work?
Right. Well, what if the queen is difficult though in the hive?
Queen's always difficult. It's part of the fun of it.